The cops successfully stopped a despicable bank robbery.
I'm not playing games.
For them, this was a victory, unaware that it was part of a master plan, which was about to shock the entire country.
God.
Welcome back to Warner Series. I don't have many subscribers, but your single comment is a ray of hope to motivate me. Michael Scofield gets his entire body inked before heading out to rob a bank. But the way he does it, it's almost like he's waiting for the cops to show up. When he's taken to court, he pleads guilty without hesitation and gets sentenced to 5 years in prison.
At 5 years, you'll be eligible for parole and...
That's exactly where he wants to be. Inside, he meets his cellmate, Sucre, and soon spots his brother Lincoln in another part of the prison. Lincoln is on death row for allegedly killing the vice president's brother.
Man killed the vice president's brother.
A flashback shows Michael's last talk with Lincoln, where his brother insists he's innocent. Michael also meets Dr. Sarah Tancredi when he goes to the infirmary for his insulin shots. He's supposedly diabetic.
News for you, Michael. Trust me, means absolutely zero inside these walls.
Right from the start, Michael starts planting origami birds all over the prison, like he's leaving clues for himself. That night, he visits the church inside the prison and meets Lincoln, who's stunned to see him there. Michael drops a bombshell. He's here to break Lincoln out. To make his plan work, Michael needs to get on the prison's work crew, but for that, he has to win over John Abruzzi, a powerful inmate with connections.
Just what I need.
Abruzzi's men on the outside receive a picture of Fibonacci, the guy who ratted Abruzzi out and got him locked up. Impatient, Abruzzi's goons jump Michael, roughing him up to get Fibonacci's whereabouts.
Got it.
Michael ends up in solitary confinement, but manages to cut a deal with Warden Pope. He'll help Pope build a model of the Taj Mahal as a gift for his wife in exchange for some privileges.
It appeals to the romantic in her.
Turns out, Michael is a structural engineer, which is why he's so confident in his escape plan. The next day, Michael meets C-Note, another inmate, and asks him to get a drug that blocks insulin.
It's an insulin blocker, standard over-the-counter variety.
Proving he isn't really diabetic. Eventually, Abruzzi gives Michael the card he needs to join the prison's work crew. This gives Michael more time to talk to Lincoln and explain his plan. Lincoln asks if Michael has seen the blueprints of the prison. Michael reveals something even crazier. He's tattooed them onto his body. Michael starts playing chess with an old inmate named Charles Westmoreland, rumored to be the man who once parachuted out of a plane with $1.5 million.
3 moves in advance. You're a hell of a...
Michael figures he'll need cash once they break out, so he plans to use Westmoreland's hidden stash. Meanwhile, he needs an Allen bolt and tries to take one from a bench, but the bench belongs to T-Bag, a ruthless inmate with a white supremacist gang.
So you're the new one I've been hearing all the rave reviews.
T-Bag makes Michael an offer, protection in exchange for being his special friend. Michael refuses, so T-Bag takes the bolt from him and warns him to watch his back. Outside the prison, Lincoln's ex-girlfriend and lawyer, Veronica, gets a video showing Lincoln pulling the trigger on the vice president's brother. When she confronts Lincoln, he swears he didn't do it. The guy was already dead when he got there. The job was supposed to be a simple hit on a low-level thug, but it was clearly a setup. Meanwhile, a race war is brewing in the prison between the white and black inmates. One of T-Bag's guys, jealous of Michael, attacks him. In the chaos, Michael manages to steal the bolt back, but then another inmate stabs T-Bag's boyfriend, who dies in Michael's arms. T-Bag sees this and assumes Michael is responsible, vowing to get revenge. Veronica is being watched by Agent Kellerman from the Secret Service. She's digging too deep into Lincoln's case, and the government doesn't want the truth getting out. Back in prison, Dr. Sarah runs some tests on Michael, suspecting he isn't actually diabetic. Thankfully, C-Note delivers the insulin-blocking drug just in time, and Michael's test results come back as expected.
For the non-diabetic is about 100 milligrams per deciliter.
This means he can keep visiting the infirmary, crucial for his escape plan. Just as he leaves the infirmary, Abruzzi grabs Michael again, demanding Fibonacci's location.
Fibonacci.
Even after torturing Michael and cutting off 2 of his toes, Michael refuses to talk, saying he'll only reveal Fibonacci's location after they escape. Later, Sarah tends to Michael's wounds in the infirmary, and Lincoln swears he'll take revenge on Abruzzi. But Michael stops him. He needs Abruzzi for the escape.
If we don't get him on board, there's not going to be any digging in that cell.
Michael tells Lincoln that Sucre is also part of the plan, but Lincoln warns him not to trust Sucre since he's a thief. Michael has no choice. He always knew he'd have to involve his cellmate, whoever it ended up being.
A year ago, I was doing exactly what you're doing.
To test Sucre's loyalty, Michael plants a fake cell phone in their cell. Lincoln tips off-guard Bellick, who searches the cell and pressures Sucre to snitch, but Sucre keeps his mouth shut. Seeing that Sucre is trustworthy, Michael finally reveals the escape plan to him.
What's in there? You never saw it.
Sucre, however, is hesitant. He's only got 16 months left before he gets out and reunites with his fiancée, so escaping isn't worth the risk. To stay out of trouble, he asks for a transfer to another cell.
I can't do that. There's always a solution.
Meanwhile, Kellerman approaches Veronica, pretending to offer help, but he's really there to keep tabs on her. Teabag, still seeking revenge, waits for the right moment to attack Michael. But Abruzzi steps in, beating Teabag and changing his approach. He tells Michael he's ready to work with him, and Michael says he'll need Abruzzi to arrange a plane for their escape.
You get me a plane, I'll get you Fibonacci.
He also assures him they'll be out before Fibonacci can testify against him. Bellick assigns Michael a new cellmate, Haywire, who's straight out of the psychiatric ward. This is bad news. Haywire never sleeps, which means Michael has no chance to dig the escape tunnel.
Don't make eye contact with him.
Haywire also becomes obsessed with Michael's tattoos, noticing a hidden pattern in them. Desperate to get rid of him, Michael fakes an attack by smashing his own head against the bars, making it look like Haywire attacked him. Haywire gets transferred out, and Sucre moves back in, ready to dig. Meanwhile, Sucre's fiancée tells him over the phone that she's moved on and is now dating his cousin. Outside the prison, Veronica reaches out to Project Justice for help, but they refuse unless she brings new evidence. One of the lawyers, Nick, decides to help her on his own. Back in prison, Michael knows Haywire saw too much, and he needs to act fast.
Smarter ways, too.
He asks Abruzzi for some chemicals and a knife. Before doing anything drastic, Sucre tells Michael he's back in.
Back, man.
Good day.
With the team complete, Michael explains that the infirmary is the weakest link in the prison security, which is why he keeps visiting it. Meanwhile, Kellerman and his partner, Agent Hale, realize too many people are helping Lincoln. To stop Michael's escape, they arrange for him to be transferred to another prison.
That is a transfer request.
They blackmail Warden Pope with a file about his illegitimate son, forcing him to approve the transfer. Pope confronts Michael, asking what's really going on, and Michael finally admits he's Lincoln's brother.
He's my brother.
He begs Pope for 3 more weeks, but Pope can't stop the transfer. With time running out, Michael seeks advice from Westmoreland, who tells him to file a petition. Even if it's rejected, the court has to review it, which will delay his transfer by 30 days.
You file a motion for...
Michael submits the petition and uses laundry duty as a cover to sneak through the hole he and Sucre have been digging. He wanders through the prison corridors, scouting the best escape route. Outside, Veronica and Nick suspect the video of Lincoln killing the vice president's brother is fake.
Now you don't, but not this one. It's laced.
A tech expert analyzes the audio and finds that the gunshot sound was recorded separately. He agrees to testify in court, only if they can find the original tape, since this one is just a copy. Not long after, the 2 lawyers come to a shocking realization.
What does that mean?
The sound of the gun.
The room where the original tape was kept has been completely flooded, leaving the evidence ruined. At the same time, Kellerman pressures Pope to get rid of Michael's petition. While Pope does destroy the document, he starts contemplating whether he should finally open up to his wife about his past.
For your guest?
Guests?
Back in prison, Michael orchestrates a fake breakout attempt to test possible escape routes. He carefully watches as police cars flood 2 of the streets he had in mind, while one route stays completely clear. Although it might seem like an innocent mix-up, Michael's actions stir up chaos within the prison,
All right, for the last.
causing Bellick to develop an even stronger dislike for him. The next morning, just when Michael is about to be transferred, Pope intervenes, deciding to keep him in prison after filing a legal motion.
Sign your citus, right?
Soon after, Pope makes the difficult decision to reveal the truth about his past to his wife. Meanwhile, the Secret Service agents are under strict orders from their boss to eliminate Lincoln before his scheduled execution.
Take the only thing Burroughs.
As days pass, Michael continues refining his escape plan, but struggles to stay on track as the guards keep performing cell inspections. The only way to create the time he needs is to trigger a prison-wide lockdown. Sucre suggests that heating up the AC system could drive the inmates into a frenzy, causing a riot that would force a lockdown.
There's 3 things.
Michael follows through with the plan, but things spiral out of control when some prisoners willingly return to their cells while others rally behind Teabag,
We'll move when the temperature.
escalating the riot further. As Michael works on his plan, his brother Lincoln finds himself in the middle of a violent clash between 2 rival inmate groups.
Yeah, Turk.
He attempts to shield a rookie guard who was supposed to escort him back to his cell. Meanwhile, an inmate, acting on the Secret Service's orders, is preparing to kill Lincoln. Over in the infirmary, Sarah and the other prisoners catch wind of the riot and launch their own mutiny.
Walk away.
Sarah is left to fend for herself in her small office while the chaos unfolds. Lincoln, despite his strength, gets overpowered by Teabag and his gang, eventually losing consciousness. In a bizarre turn of events, Teabag stumbles upon Michael's hidden escape tunnel, but unfortunately, the rookie guard notices it too. Teabag sees this as leverage, demanding to be included in Michael's escape crew.
The cops are right outside.
However, the team is faced with a major dilemma: what to do with the guard. Teabag suggests killing him, but Michael refuses to go that route. Meanwhile, Michael realizes Sarah is in danger and rushes to the infirmary to help her. Elsewhere, a dangerous inmate named Turk deceives Lincoln by luring him into an underground area, supposedly to reunite him with Michael. Instead, Turk ambushes him and attempts to strangle him with a wire. Both men are massive and powerful, clashing like 2 forces of nature. Lincoln slams Turk against the wall, managing to free himself. Back in Michael's cell, Teabag is tormenting the capture guard. On the outside, Veronica and Nick uncover new information.
Made an anonymous phone call to the local cops.
Lincoln had received a phone call from Washington on the night of the murder, yet the crime itself took place in Chicago. This revelation leads them to head to Washington in search of more clues.
Should we go back or keep going?
Meanwhile, the governor, who also happens to be Sarah's father, arrives at the prison, demanding Pope take action against the riot. Back in the infirmary, things escalate dangerously for Sarah. Just as it seems she's trapped, Michael arrives in the nick of time, leading her to safety. Despite her fear, Michael reassures her that he means no harm. He just wants to get her out of danger. Meanwhile, Turk, still lurking in the shadows, launches another attack on Lincoln, this time wielding a metal pipe. In a desperate move, Lincoln fights back, sending Turk falling to his death.
You gotta help me. You gotta help.
Before dying, Turk refuses to reveal who sent him. Elsewhere, Sucre and Abruzzi continue digging through a risky wall, following Michael's blueprints precisely to avoid a disaster.
Who's your friend?
If they hit the wrong spot, they could trigger an explosion. As Michael and Sarah make their escape, a group of inmates chases after them. Michael protects Sarah, and when another prisoner tries to intervene, Sarah retaliates with a powerful kick to his knee, buying them both time to get away. Michael eventually guides Sarah to safety while sharpshooters fire at the pursuing inmates. Michael barely escapes, crawling away from the gunfire. In Washington, Nick and Veronica track down the exact phone booth used to make the suspicious call on the night of the murder. Just as they examine it, the phone rings. A chilling voice warns them that their fate is sealed. As of now, you're both dead. Back at the prison, law enforcement prepares to storm in and regain control. Michael orders the group to release the guard, but Teabag refuses and kills him just before the officers break in. Meanwhile, Sarah starts piecing things together, realizing Michael knows way too much about the prison layout for an ordinary inmate.
like this was gonna happen, didn't I? I knew.
As Veronica and Nick return to her apartment, a helpful neighbor offers to assist them with carrying some files inside.
You again, Miss Donovan.
No, Lucas, the other.
But the moment he opens the door, a bomb goes off, killing him instantly. To execute his escape plan, Michael needs access to the guard's room, but no inmate is allowed in except for Cooper, who has earned the guard's trust. Michael approaches him, hoping to recruit him into the plan, but Cooper refuses, stating that if Michael is relying on his supposed hidden fortune of $1.5 million, he's making a grave mistake.
Once she's gone, no more pets.
Outside, Nick advises Veronica to avoid contacting anyone. Since their enemies believe they're dead, they now have a chance to continue their investigation without interference.
What they want. I would just walked away from there without.
Meanwhile, Michael finds Cooper's missing cat, which had disappeared during the riot, and returns it to him. Even then, Cooper still refuses to help. The Secret Service launches yet another sinister scheme. This time, they murder LJ's mother and stepfather, pinning the crime on a boy. Back at the prison, Bellick interrogates Cooper about the guard's death, but Cooper refuses to snitch, knowing it could cost him his life. In retaliation, Bellick cruelly kills Cooper's cat, which ultimately convinces him to help Michael by setting fire to the guard's room. This is exactly what Michael needs, as it ensures that Abruzzi's crew will be called in to fix the damage. Meanwhile, Teabag manipulates the situation, framing an associate for the guard's murder to get Bellick off their backs. However, he doesn't stop there. He continues threatening the group, making it clear that unless they accept him into the escape plan, he will expose everything. Left with no choice, the team allows him to join. Once inside the guard's room for renovations, the crew resumes digging. By the end of the episode, a shocking revelation surfaces. The Secret Service agents are not just acting on their own. They're taking orders directly from the Vice President herself. In the days that follow, a young inmate under Teabag's control desperately seeks Michael's help. But Michael hesitates to intervene. The crew continues their excavation, discreetly getting rid of the dirt by emptying it into the yard bit by bit. However, Michael is deeply shaken when he later discovers the young inmate has taken his own life. Meanwhile, Bellick pressures Abruzzi for his usual payoff, but the money hasn't come through. As a warning, Bellick threatens to strip Abruzzi of his privileges. Abruzzi contacts the Mafia for assistance, only to realize they're turning their backs on him because he hasn't delivered Fibonacci's location. This leads to an internal power struggle, with a new leader, Lorelli, taking control. Furious, Abruzzi attacks Lorelli, but his former allies hold him back, making it clear that a new hierarchy is in place. Outside the prison, Nick and Veronica meet with the wife of Stedman, the vice president's brother. She discloses that Stedman was on the verge of being prosecuted for a financial scandal, meaning several powerful people had a motive to silence him. Back inside, Teabag fixates on a new inmate, David, who wants nothing to do with him. When Teabag refuses to back off, Michael decides it's time to step in. Meanwhile, LJ successfully evades the agents tailing him and reunites with Veronica and Nick. Later, Michael takes matters into his own hands, making it clear that he calls the shots. He injures Teabag's knee, warning him to leave David alone. However, the crew receives bad news. Because Abruzzi missed a payment, they are removed from the guard's room project, replaced by Lorelli's crew. With time running out, Abruzzi pressures Michael to give up Fibonacci's location to regain control before their escape plan is exposed. He had been running errands for the Mafia without even realizing it, but everything changed the day he saw John take out two guys. Meanwhile, Cenote starts feeling like something's not adding up with Schofield, so he tells Lely to join his crew. Lely doesn't need extra hands, but when Cenote offers him $100 a month, the deal sounds too good to pass up. Schofield, on the other hand, asks Abruzzi to reach out to Fzone and arrange a meetup inside the prison. Fzone agrees, but John knows that if Schofield screws this up, he's as good as dead. As Cenote starts working with the crew, he stumbles upon the hidden tunnel in the floor. Elsewhere, a guy named Quinn is sent by the vice president to clean up the mess personally. He tells the agents to step aside while he tracks down the lawyers and LJ. Back at the prison, Fzone arrives to meet with John and Schofield. Michael lays out his plan for tracking down Fibonacci, and Fzone asks for the address. Schofield tries to negotiate for some cash in return, but Abruzzi flashes a picture of Veronica, making it crystal clear that if Michael doesn't hand over the location, she's done for. To keep her safe, Schofield gives Fzone the address. Fzone wastes no time reinstating O'Bruzy as the prison's mafia boss and orders him to sort out the issue with Bellic's payment. Fzone gathers a team to go after Fibonacci, but Michael has led them straight into a trap. When O'Bruzy confronts Schofield about it, it turns out the two had been working together all along. Meanwhile, Quinn tracks down Veronica's ex, kills him, and uses his computer to send her a coded message. When Veronica responds, Quinn gets the location he needs. O'Bruzy's team gets back to work on the tunnel, and Schofield announces that they'll be out by Friday. Just then, Cenote crashes their meeting. He's discovered the tunnel and insists on being part of the escape. Michael doesn't have a choice but to let him in. The next day, Schofield's wife, Nah, visits him and hands over a credit card. That night, Michael uses the car to sneak through a few locked doors, heading to the room where the inmates' belongings are stored. When he gets there, he realizes someone swiped his watch. Out in the woods, Quinn fakes an injury to trick Veronica and her crew into letting him inside. The moment he steps in, he shoots Nick and ties the others up, using Nick as leverage since he's bleeding out fast. He demands to know what evidence they've gathered. The next morning, Michael tracks down the guard who stole his watch. Since the watch is crucial to his escape plan, he needs to get it back. He asks David for help, knowing that stealing is second nature to him. In return, Michael promises to consider adding him to the escape team. David fakes a seizure to get close to the guard, and when Michael checks later, the watch is gone from the guard's wrist. Pope reaches out to Cooper, informing him that his daughter is sick, but the state won't let him visit her. Desperate, Cooper approaches Schofield, hands over the watch, and says he wants in on the escape. He even offers up a stash of cash he'd hidden from an old robbery. Schofield repurposes the watch and a cell phone into a recording device, planting it near the infirmary to track the guard's shift changes. Meanwhile, Veronica and LJ make a narrow escape and manage to trap Quinn in a well. That same night, Bellic corners Nah, pressing her for info on Schofield. She tries to dodge his questions, but eventually slips up and admits she gave Michael a credit card. At the same time, Schofield and Sarah are growing closer. Their brief encounters outside the prison become something they both start looking forward to. Quinn, trapped in the well, calls Kellerman for help, but instead of rescuing him, Kellerman makes sure Quinn never gets out. Schofield retrieves the recorder, does the math, and figures out they only have 18 minutes to pull off the escape. He tells Lincoln there isn't enough time for everyone to make it. One person has to be left behind. Cenote overhears the conversation and spreads the word. The crew immediately assumes Teabag will be the one left out. But Teabag isn't dumb. He sees it coming and warns them that he's already informed his cousin about the escape. If Teabag doesn't check in with him at the right times, his cousin will blow the whistle. The Mafia tracks down Teabag's cousin, and O'Bruzy orders a man to kidnap him. The plan is to keep him alive until they escape, then release him. But things spiral out of control when a Mafia guy kills both the cousin and his son. The child's death rattles O'Bruzy, filling him with guilt. Not long after, strange mold formations appear in his cell. O'Bruzy starts seeing religious visions, convinced that God is sending him a message about forgiveness. Meanwhile, Bellic hears from Guard Geary about Schofield's missing watch. He corners David and pressures him into spying on Michael, promising rewards in return. Hale, growing increasingly remorseful about his involvement, contacts Veronica. He agrees to meet her, saying he has information that could prove Lincoln's innocence. Back at the prison, O'Bruzy confronts Teabag, trying to intimidate him into backing out of the escape. But Teabag is always one step ahead. He spits out a hidden razor blade and slashes O'Bruzy. Meanwhile, Schofield makes his way through the corridors as his crew finishes the tunnel in the guard's room. Geary drops by to check on them, forcing Lincoln to attack him to buy them time. When Michael finally emerges from the tunnel, he declares that they're making their move that night. However, getting Lincoln out is now the biggest problem. O'Bruzy is airlifted to a hospital for urgent medical care. Lincoln gets beaten by the guards and thrown into solitary. When Michael asks to see him, the warden refuses, saying the only time he'll see his brother again is at his execution, which is set for 36 hours later. Michael tells the crew that the escape is off until they find a way to free Lincoln. The others, however, aren't willing to wait and plan to leave that night, whether Michael is with them or not. Determined not to let that happen, Schofield takes a razor blade and extracts a hidden pill from his arm. He then asks the prison priest to deliver a cross to Lincoln, saying it will mean a lot to him. Inside the cross is a note reading, "Eat at 8:10. As the crew heads to the guard's room, Michael creates a minor flood to force Bellick into keeping them there to clean up. Meanwhile, Veronica meets with Lincoln and tells him that Nick is working on evidence that might buy them a postponement. When the time comes, Lincoln swallows the pill and starts convulsing. The prison staff rushes him to the infirmary. At 9 p.m. sharp, the team moves out. Meanwhile, Veronica meets with Hale, who reveals that Stedman was never actually killed. He's still alive. Before Hale can hand over a file exposing everyone involved in the conspiracy, Kellerman intervenes and kills him. Inside the prison, Michael leads the team under the infirmary, aiming to grab Lincoln and escape. But there's a problem. A maintenance crew has replaced the pipe Michael had cut a hole through. The plan is suddenly impossible. Teabag, furious, pulls out a knife and lunges at Michael. But before he can make a move, a guard walks by, forcing them all to play it cool. Realizing they have no choice, they slip back to their cells, acting as if nothing happened. Michael later asks Sarah to talk to her father, the governor, about Lincoln, but she refuses, knowing he never listens to her. Meanwhile, Nick and Veronica push to get an appeal, insisting they have a source who claims Stedman is still alive. Through Cooper, Michael learns about an old case where an inmate survived the electric chair, only to be forced to sit through the process again 3 weeks later. This gives Michael a new idea. If he can sabotage the chair, Lincoln might have a fighting chance. Michael makes his way back through the corridors and, by sheer luck, spots a little mouse scurrying around. Thinking fast, he catches it and lets it loose inside the room with the electric chair, hoping it'll somehow mess with the current and cause a disruption. But there's a problem. David overheard Michael talking about the chair and decided to snitch to Bellick. The guard inspects the chair and realizes it's not working properly. As he investigates, he finds the charred remains of the poor mouse inside the electrical panel. The issue is minor, just a blown fuse, and all they need to do is swap it out to get the chair functioning again. Meanwhile, Veronica and Nick manage to secure a hearing, but they don't have enough solid evidence to back up their claims. Veronica tries to bring up Kellerman and Hale, but the vice president's lawyer shuts her down with a document from the Secret Service stating that no such agents exist. With nothing substantial to fight with, Lincoln's appeal is denied. He's escorted to the visitation room one last time to see Michael, while Sarah tries to plead with her father using some information she's gathered, but even that isn't enough. Just as Lincoln is about to be taken to the chair, the governor calls Pope and tells him he won't be granting Lincoln any favors. It seems like the end of the road for Lincoln. But then, just moments before the execution, Lincoln spots a man in the crowd and tries to tell Michael about him. Suddenly, Pope gets a phone call and halts the execution, explaining that Judge Kessler has ordered them to stop. Veronica immediately leaves to meet with the judge, while Lincoln tells Michael that the man he saw was their father. Judge Kessler informs Veronica that he received some reports highlighting inconsistencies in the coroner's findings, so he's postponing the execution for 2 weeks. He's also ordered Stedman's body to be exhumed so further tests can be conducted. With the delay secured, Michael shifts his focus back to planning the escape. He figures out that their only way out now is through the psychiatric ward, but first, he needs to map out the new route. Sucre lends him a hand by getting a guard's uniform from his cousin, who works in the prison's laundry department. Meanwhile, C-Note has a heart-to-heart with another inmate, revealing that his family has no idea he's in prison. He's been sending them letters, pretending he's stationed overseas in Iraq. Using the guard's uniform as a disguise, Michael sneaks into the psychiatric ward to scope things out. Elsewhere, the coroner completes his examination and concludes that the body they dug up does, in fact, belong to Stedman, throwing a wrench into Veronica's investigation. On his way back, Michael gets caught off guard by a patrolling guard and burns himself on a hot pipe while trying to hide. He barely makes it back to his cell before passing out from the pain. The next morning, he wakes up in the infirmary, while Bellick starts questioning Sucre, suspecting he had something to do with Michael's burn. Meanwhile, Kellerman teams up with some high-ranking agents from a shadowy organization called The Company, which also happens to be affiliated with Vice President Reynolds. They review security footage and realize it was Lincoln and Michael's father who secretly delivered the reports to Judge Kessler. Back in his cell, Michael checks his burn wound and is horrified to see that a crucial part of his tattoo, the part with the escape plan, is now destroyed. The story flashes back 3 years, showing how different Michael and Lincoln's lives were. Michael had everything going for him. He had a degree, a great job, and had just bought a house. Lincoln, on the other hand, was caught up in a bad crowd, always getting into trouble. Michael had grown tired of playing the responsible one for his older brother. One day, Lincoln walked into his home and found Crab waiting for him, along with another man. Lincoln owed Crab a massive $90,000 debt, but the other man had settled it. Of course, it wasn't an act of kindness. He wanted Lincoln to assassinate Stedman. Confused and desperate, Lincoln tried calling Michael for advice, but Michael didn't answer. When Lincoln arrived at the scene, he found the target already dead in the car. Shortly after, he was arrested, and Michael blamed him for getting involved in such a mess. Their father had disappeared years ago, and their mother had passed away, but Michael managed to move forward. He believed their mother had left them money from her life insurance, which helped him build a future, while Lincoln had wasted his opportunities. But Veronica drops a bombshell. There was never any life insurance money. Lincoln had borrowed the cash and secretly given it to Michael, making it look like it came from their mother. Realizing what his brother had done for him all these years, Michael finally made the decision to get himself locked up to break Lincoln out. The flashback also gives insights into other key characters. Sarah was a recovering addict who met Bellick in a support group, which led her to work at the prison. Sucre got arrested while trying to rob a store because he needed money for an engagement ring. C-Note had served in the military, but was dishonorably discharged after exposing illegal torture. Teabag had been in love with a woman with 2 kids, but she turned him in when she discovered he was a fugitive. Finally, we see Reynolds meeting a mysterious man, who turns out to be Stedman, alive and well. Back in the present, another issue arises. Bellick forces David onto Michael's crew, keeping him close to gather intel. Meanwhile, Veronica and her team return to the well where Quinn's body is. LJ climbs down to retrieve Quinn's phone and notices 2 names carved into the stone, Kellerman and Cooper. At the same time, Sarah hands Pope a piece of burned fabric she found while treating Michael, which clearly came from a guard's uniform. Pope immediately questions Michael, but since he doesn't get a straight answer, he throws him into solitary confinement. Frustrated, Michael tries to recall the missing part of his tattoo, but it's no use. Angered, he starts punching the walls. Things get even more complicated when Bellick hires professionals to work in the guard's room, meaning the team has to figure out how to conceal the hole they've been digging. Since Sucre's cell is the only one with access to the passage, he's the one who has to cover it up. He makes a run for it during the night, but gets caught. Thinking on his feet, he claims he was waiting for his girlfriend to toss him some underwear over the wall. Bellick believes the story, but still throws Sucre into solitary. Meanwhile, Sarah is summoned to check on Michael, and David takes this opportunity to inform Bellick that something is definitely up with the crew. He isn't sure what, but he knows it has to do with the floor. Bellick goes to investigate, but luckily, Sucre did a great job covering up the hole, and the cement has dried, making everything look normal. Outside the prison, LJ uncovers Kellerman's real identity, Owen Krivecki. Determined to get revenge, he sneaks into his house with a gun, but before he could do anything, the cops arrive and arrest him. Inside the prison, Michael pretends to have a mental breakdown so he can be moved to the psych ward. While there, he approaches a fellow inmate, Haywire, who had previously figured out that Michael's tattoos contained hidden information. Michael needs him to remember and redraw the missing piece of the map. However, the medication Haywire is on makes it hard for him to concentrate. Elsewhere, a guard named Geary decides to auction off Michael's cell to the highest bidder since it has the best spot in the block. Teabag informs the team, and C-Note offers $500 to secure the cell, but when he asks his guys to send him the money, they refuse and beat him up instead, warning him against hanging out with white inmates. Back in the psych ward, Haywire finally starts remembering bits and pieces of Michael's tattoos. But just as things start coming together, he recalls too much and flips out, attacking Michael for setting him up. With no choice, Michael manipulates the situation and gets himself sent back to his cell. Meanwhile, Teabag and C-Note try to hustle enough cash to secure the cell in a poker game. But Geary just takes their money without handing over the key. Sanchez has figured out way too much, so Sucre and Lincoln decide it's time to fill him in on the escape plan. Meanwhile, Michael comes up with a clever way to deal with 2 problems at once. He goes straight to Pope and accuses Geary of extorting him for money. Since he couldn't pay up, Geary burned him. Pope checks Geary's locker and, sure enough, finds a stash of cash. That's the end of Geary. He's fired and thrown out of the prison. Around the same time, Lincoln is taken out of the prison for a brief visit with his son. But things take a wild turn when a huge truck crashes into the van, flipping it over. When Lincoln wakes up, he's lying in a field, and Kellerman is standing over him. ready to strangle him. Just as things look grim, another man appears out of nowhere and knocks Kellerman out cold. Back at the prison, Michael gathers his team and tells them he's got the final piece of the escape figured out. But to pull it off, he needs a key to the infirmary, which is only in the hands of medical staff. At the same time, Abruzzi makes a surprising return to the prison, somehow surviving Teabag's attack. Michael visits Sarah in the infirmary, and they share a kiss. But when it's time to steal the key from her, he just can't bring himself to do it. Instead, he asks her to wait for him. Sarah has feelings for him, but dating an inmate? That's a hard no for her. Michael then asks David for help, but the kid isn't doing any favors for free. He'll only lend a hand if Michael finds a way to get rid of his cellmate, Avocado, who's been tormenting him. Meanwhile, the man who saved Lincoln is revealed, his long-lost father, Aldo. Aldo spills the truth. He once worked for a powerful group known as the Company, a shadowy organization pulling strings behind the scenes. When Aldo tried to break free, the Company framed Lincoln, hoping it would lure him back out. Meanwhile, Abruzzi seems like a changed man, claiming that Jesus saved him. He even tries to shake hands with Teabag, hoping to bury the past. But despite this so-called redemption, he's still all in on the escape plan. Meanwhile, Michael's wife meets with Sarah outside the prison. She tells Sarah that Michael is a good guy and that he married her just so she could get her green card. But her real reason for meeting up? To snatch Sarah's keys and pass them to Michael. Aldo reveals that the Company faked Stedman's death to cover up a scandal. But before Lincoln can escape with his father, Kellerman and the cops show up. To protect Aldo, Lincoln gives himself up. Back at the prison, Michael manages to make a copy of the infirmary key, but Sarah catches on and quickly requests the lock to be changed. Meanwhile, Abruzzi makes a secret call to someone and tells them to get ready. Turns out, he's talking to Nick, who's been watching over Veronica for Abruzzi. David is in serious trouble with Avocado, so Michael steps in, offering him a way out. David promises he can be trusted, but the second Michael lets him in on the escape, he snitches to Bellick. As soon as Bellick hears the plan, he rushes to check out the guard's room and finds the hole in the floor. But before he can raise the alarm, Cooper attacks him. The old man may be injured, but he's got enough fight left in him to knock Bellick out. When Michael finds out, he realizes they have no choice. They have to escape that very night. Michael lays out tasks for everyone, reminding them that the police dogs will be a big problem once they're out. Then, he takes a gamble and tells Sarah everything. He asks her to leave the infirmary door unlocked, but she doesn't give him a clear answer before walking away. Meanwhile, Abruzzi calls Nick again, reminding him to bring Veronica to a designated location that night. Pope, on the other hand, is dealing with an entirely different problem. The Taj Mahal replica in his office collapses, and he needs Michael to help fix it. But when Michael gets there, he pulls a knife on Pope, making it clear that he's breaking out, and Lincoln is coming with him. Michael forces Pope to order the guards to transfer Lincoln to the infirmary for the night. Despite Pope's efforts to change Michael's mind, there's no turning back now. Once the order is given, Michael locks Pope inside his own office closet. As the clock ticks down, the prisoners start crawling through the hole one by one. Meanwhile, Bellick wakes up and starts screaming for help. The inmates barely manage to reach him in time to shut him up. Elsewhere, the Company is abandoning Reynolds, who's losing her presidential race. But knowing she won't go down quietly, they're already planning their next move against her. At the last minute, Sarah returns to the prison and makes a choice. She unlocks the infirmary door, believing that Lincoln is innocent. Michael then sets off the fire alarm in the psychiatric ward, causing a mass evacuation. He and his team, dressed in white uniforms, blend in with the crowd and slip inside. Meanwhile, Nick has a change of heart. Even though the Mafia has his father, he lets Veronica go free. This noble act costs him and his father their lives. The Mafia takes them both out. The team finds Lincoln just as Pope's secretary discovers that the warden is locked in a closet. The alarm blares throughout the prison. To make matters worse, Haywire has been following Michael and insists on joining the escape. With no other choice, they take him along. Using a rope, they scale the wall. But Cooper, who's badly wounded, doesn't make it. With his last breath, he tells Michael where he's hidden his fortune, but a few other inmates overhear him. Michael and Sanchez are the last to climb the rope, but it can't hold their combined weight. Sanchez is too heavy. He falls. Michael barely makes it over. By then, Bellick is freed, and Pope gives the guard permission to use lethal force if necessary. The fugitives reach a van that Abruzzi's men left for them. But before they can get in, they turn on Haywire and leave him behind. Inside the van, Abruzzi finally gets his revenge. He's about to kill Teabag. But before he can, Teabag handcuffs himself to Michael and swallows the key. Things spiral out of control. The crew is forced to ditch the van and make a run for it. Michael, furious over David's betrayal, kicks him out of the team. Meanwhile, Reynolds refuses to go down quietly. She hatches a plan: assassinate the President of the United States. The fugitives hide in a warehouse, but they need to deal with Teabag, who's slowing them down. After pinning him down, Sucre tries cutting the handcuffs, but it doesn't work. Abruzzi loses patience, grabs an axe, and chops off Teabag's hand. They leave him screaming on the ground and take off. Meanwhile, the president dies, and Reynolds is sworn in as the new leader. The company wants to renegotiate with her, but now that she has more power, she plays by her own rules. Pope's men search for Sarah, but she's in no shape to talk. She's overdosed. Veronica finally reaches Montana and sneaks into a mansion. And just as she suspected, Stedman is alive. The fugitives sprint toward an airstrip where Abruzzi's men have a plane waiting. But before they can reach it, the police arrive. The pilot, realizing the escape has been blown, gets the engines running. The team arrives just in time to watch the plane take off without them. Sirens wail in the distance. There's only one thing left to do: run.